In this video, I want to jump into the most effective Python tutorial that you've probably ever seen, and it's for beginners. So let's go. Hi everyone, I've been doing Python for the last 8 years, and today I'm going to be showing you the most efficient Python tutorial for absolute beginners. Let's get started. When it comes to Python, Python is one of the most valuable languages that you can learn nowadays. It is used for AI things, for machine learning things, for applications and websites, for all types of technology. It's what I call the international language of the programming world because it is one that everyone is able to speak. I'm going to be showing you your first lines of Python or an easy first Python tutorial, and we're going to be building a chatbot. So what I really want you to do is go to a website right now in your browser if you're on your phone or on your desktop. I want you to be watching this video, and on the side, open up a browser and go to collab.research.google, or you can also Google Colab. This is a notebook that you can use to write code on your browser. This makes it so much quicker because you don't have to do any setup. You can literally go to Google Colab, and it is the same as Google Docs, a Word document where you can write your essay, but instead you can write Python in code and run it. So now that you've gone to Google Colab, you do a new notebook, but we're gonna call this my first Python chatbot. And don't be scared, this is gonna be very easy. Python actually is one of the easiest languages to learn. You see here in Google Colab, you have these code boxes, and this is where you can write your code. And you can press the play button to run it. Now, the first concept that we're gonna go over is comments. So comments in Python are things that don't run. They're just there for you to take notes. And very much like Twitter, we use hashtags. So whenever you put a hashtag, anything after it won't be run. So I'm just gonna put here comments, my first Python chatbot. And if I run this, you'll see that it's not gonna run anything because this is just a comment and it's not actual code. Now we're gonna jump into a term called variables. See, I put another comment here, but a variable, if you think in terms of a chatbot that we're gonna be building today, you probably used a ton of chatbots, but think of it almost like a robot. We're gonna start with symbols. Think of variables as concepts or a container in the memory of a robot where you want it to store something, right? It's just for storage. So here I'm going to say the chatbot name is called Elon. So name equals Elon. And then the age is 1 year old. So the chatbot is 1 year old. And what you can start to see here is that I have told the bot that I want it to store anytime that I say name, what I mean is Elon. And anytime that I mean age, it's 1. You'll see that I put this in quote marks and this not in quote marks. And that's because there's different types as well. So this is called a string. Anytime that you put text in, you want to put quote marks around it so it knows that it's text. But it can also take in other types of variables. So here it's a number, or we like to call an integer. Now, if a number has a decimal place, like this, it can also be known as a float. But right now we'll just call it an integer. So you can have variables where you define concepts for the bot, like here is your name, this is the age, and I'm gonna add one more, which is, am I very cool? And you can put that to true. So there's also another type of value that you can add, or type, which is called a Boolean. So this is true or false. And so you can use this in order for the bot to know not just text, not just numbers, but also true or falses. So that is pretty much what variables are. And just to show you real quick a concept, I'm going to do something called print. So right now, if I run this, nothing is displayed. And that's because I've just instructed my computer to store these, but I haven't told it to print. I haven't told it to do anything, right? And so there's this function called print. Print basically says, hey, I want you to demonstrate or display what the value of something is. So I'm going to print the name, and if I print the name, it's going to tell me Elon. If I print the other ones, like age, where I'm very cool, you see it says Elon 1 and true. And one last thing is that these containers, you can change, right? Imagine you're talking to a chatbot. I want to say, actually, I've changed my mind. Your name is Jeff. And so if I run this, it now says Jeff. And that's because before I've asked it to tell me what the name is, I told it, hey, your name is Elon. Never mind, your name is Jeff. And so it's gotten the most recent version. So that is what variables are. They are small containers, for example, in the mind of the computer, where you can store things. Oh, now we'll get onto another concept, which are inputs. So input is a very easy function. Literally, I can just put input and I can put a question. What would you like me to do today? And if I run this, it is going to just display exactly what I wrote and ask for input. Send a rocket to Mars. So all it is, it takes the input that I send it and displays it back. And this is going to be useful for a chatbot because the chatbot is going to be asking for a message. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this concept of variables and we're going to assign message from the user into here. So if I run this, what would you like me to do today? Run around. And it hasn't done anything, but now if I print this message, it should also print it. So what would you like me to do today? Run around. And it prints it here. So that is what an input is. It allows you to ask the user for some input. And now we're going to get to some more advanced topics, which is some type of logic. So now you're starting to probably understand how we would do a bot here, right? We can start to take an input. We can define some variables that the bot should have in its mind. Its name is, its age, etc. What if we want the bot to respond differently to different inputs? Well, we have these things called if and else statements, as well as conditionals. And what does this mean? It means that, let's say that the name is Jeff, right? We said this before. What we can do is if a user inputs a certain message, we can behave slightly different. So let's say that we have that message, right? Message is, let's say the name is Jeff. What we can do is if the name is equals Jeff, which is equals means the same as, right? So right now what we're writing is an if condition. It means that you can start to have different logic, right? When you start to use a chatbot, you want it to behave differently according to what you say, for example. Right? So here we've said, if the name is Jeff, then we want you to print, hi, Jeff. So as you remember, this was a way that we can put it into, print it on the screen. Just know that the way that it knows what to do is that you have to do something called an indentation. So you have to add 2 spaces, for example, or 1 tab. And you have to add a tab, and here it's gonna know that it should print only if it's in this condition. So if I now run this, it'll say hi Jeff because the name is Jeff. It says if the name is Jeff, then print hi Jeff, right? But what if the name is Elon, right? What you can do here is else if, or it's called elif. And so you can say if the name is Elon. And here what's great is that it kind of, as you see, AI generated autocomplete helps me do it, but I do, hey, print hi Elon. So here is what a if condition is. So if the name is Jeff, do this, else if the name is Elon, do this. And if I print, it says hi Elon because the name is Elon. It goes through, it's not Jeff, so it goes to the next one. It goes through and it is. And last one is that you can do else. And so here in else, we can say print hi stranger. So there's the AI autocomplete really helping me. And so if I just do a keyboard bash here and I run this, hi stranger, because it's not Jeff, it's not Elon. And so if it's not any of those, it prints hi stranger. So now you've done if and else conditionals. Next, what we'll do is we're going to go into what's called loops. And there is 2 main types of loops. And loops just allow you to do things that you want to do repeatedly. So for example, let's say that we have different bots named different things, right? And so here, one thing that I didn't put here in terms of a type, for example, is we can bot names, right? And so we might have one called Elon, one called Jeff, and one called Wally, right? And so this is what's called a array or a list. And basically these square brackets just mean that, hey, I don't just have one string or one piece of text. I actually have a list, right? Imagining your iPhone notes while you're doing a grocery shop list. This is like a list of food items. And it's because you have several, right? So you say one of these, one of these, one of these, and you just put a comma in between and some square brackets. So that's how you define. But let's say that you want to go through, for example, here we have the bot names, and we say we have one called Jeff, one called Wally. And one thing you can do is like, hey, if I wanted to print out the names, I could do print Elon. I'm just going to copy this. Print Jeff and print Wally, right? But imagine that I have 100 things in here. That would take me a long time, 100 lines, right? And so what you can do to do things that are repetitive or in a sequence is that you can do what's called a for loop. So you say, and this is like English, for every name, and you can just make up what this is, right? Every name in bot names, I want you to print the name. And what this says is that I want you to go for every single name, like these, every individual one, in this list of names, and then just print it out. And there you go. It's exactly the same thing. And you can think how much time you're saving here, because imagine doing individually, if this list was 100 names, doing 100 lines instead of these 2 lines, right? So this is what is called a for loop. And there's also something called a while loop. And a while loop is a way for you to tell it to not stop doing something until something happens, right? So this is quite easy. Oh, I want you to go for every item in the list is complete. Here, a while loop, for example, you can say while, let's say that the name is Jeff. While the name equals, which means the same as Jeff, then I want you to print the name. And one thing that you're gonna see here is that this is going to print infinitely. And that's because you haven't told it there's no reason to stop. It says it'll do something continuously until this condition, what is called the condition, isn't true. So right now there's nothing changing. The name is Jeff here forever. And so it says while the name is Jeff, it'll print, and you'll see it'll probably go on forever. So it'll probably stop itself, but it'll go on forever, which you don't want. That was quite a lot already. So what we can do is you can say, for example, print the name Jeff, right? Then I want you to put the name Elon here and then print the name again. And what's going to happen is it's going to print the name Jeff because the name that then gets reassigned to Elon, and then it's going to print Elon. It does a loop, right? That's why it's called loops, because it continues doing this. And then when it goes back up here for the second loop, it realizes that the name is no longer Jeff, right? It's Elon. And so this becomes false. And when this becomes false, it stops. So this should only run once. If I go here, you see I've printed this from before. But what I can do, for example, as I showed you before, is you can put things in hashtags. So I comment it out so it doesn't run. And here it prints Jeff and then it prints Elon. Cool. So now we've done for loops, so it's while loops and for loops. And lastly, before we jump into the code, we're going to do something called functions and imports. And so a function is a way that, you know how here I said that like you could do these easier ways in order to, imagine this list was 100, you could put 100 print statements to print all the names, but that would take ages, right? Well, here it's similar. A function can be a reusable component that you can use elsewhere. Instead of writing the same thing on and on, it's kind of like a copy paste of a specific type of logic. So how you start a function is you say, for example, def, which you're defining it, and you can do then the name. So I'm going to say numbers is the name of my function. And you can put this underscore. You can, for example, name it however you want. You can do like this. An underscore typically is instead of a space. Then you say that what you want it to take. So you can say A and B, which are variables. And then, for example, you can say that I've defined this function called add numbers. I take A and B, and what I want to spit out is, because it's adding 2 numbers, is A plus B, right? So if I run this, it doesn't do anything. But basically I've just told the computer, hey, I want it so that whenever I tell you to add numbers and I give you two numbers, you give me A plus B. And you can make this a lot more complex, right? You can times by 3 plus 4. You can do whatever you want. But if I add numbers here, for example, 1 and 2, and I print this out, it's going to give me 3, right? 1 plus 2 is 3. And if I do 5 and I run this, it's going to do 1 plus 5 is 6. So that is a function. And one cool thing as well is that you can actually import functions and code that other people have done, right? That's a cool way to save a lot of time, right? Just copy, paste from someone else. And so you can do something, for example, here's a package, an import called datetime that allows me to, instead of try to find out what day it is today, it can tell me that directly. So I can do, for example, a function here that says get today's date, and I'm not going to give it anything, and it says return date dot string format time, and it says month, day, and year. So that's cool about the autocomplete. I'm not sure if you saw that, but you can define it here. And here is what's called a function or a method that I've imported. So someone else made this method. And if I print out get today's date, and I'll just comment this line out with a hashtag, and I run this, it's going to give me today's date, 11 of the 17th of 2024. So there you go. That is functions and imports. Loops and for loops, you've done quite a bit. And now let's just put it all together, right? You want to create your first chatbot. So let's go. We're going to start off with defining the name, right? And we're going to say the name is Jeff. There we go. We're going to put a comment saying my first chatbot. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to import one of those modules here at the top, right? So we said import datetime from import datetime, right? That's what we wrote up here. Now we're going to define the function. So we're going to say define add, and we can add numbers A and B, return A plus B. Cool. We're also here going to define the date function, right? Get today's date. And so here you can return datetime.string format. So that's today's date. And now we're going to start that bot itself. So we say while true. Do you know how I said that while loops will continue infinitely as long as this happens? One way to for example, a chatbot should always continue to ask you when it's finished replying to you what you want it to ask next, right? So a good way to have an infinite way to ask is saying while true. And then remember up there when we use the inputs, we said the user message is input. And then you say, how can I help you today? And instead here, this will be kind of cool if we put emoji of a robot, bot, and if I run this, now it will just be asking for messages constantly. So if I run this, bot, how can I help you today? But I haven't done anything else, right? So it just keeps asking. So now is when I want to start using those if statements. So I want to say, now that I've captured this user message here, after the user writes it, I'm going to say if the user message, and I'm going to do something called dot lower. Dot lower means just in lowercase, so it doesn't matter if this is an uppercase or lowercase, because I might write what's the date in all caps or not. And so you want to maybe adjust that. So you say if user message equals what is the date, right? What you can say what is your name. All you can do is you can print the name of the bot, right? So print name. So if I run this and I say, what is your name? It says Jeff, and then it asks again. Cool, right? This is already the start of basically like one of these chat interfaces that you see. Obviously those use AI, and this is more pure Python, but it's still pretty cool. What I'm gonna do next is else if, and I say, okay, the user message is, instead of what is your name, it says, what is the date? I want you to print out get today's date, right? So I call this function, and I have to do these parentheses here to call this function. And so now if I stop this and run it again, how can I help you today? I say, what is the date? And it says the date today, right? It's pretty cool. I can then copy this as well and then do what is 1 plus 2. And instead here I do add 1 and 2, right? And I do 1 is 1 plus 2. It says, and I also wanted to exit infinite loop. What if I want to say, hey, I actually want to stop talking to you, which is a little bit mean. And if you say if user message is equal to exit, or like, then what you can do is you can say you print bye-bye, and then you can break. And break just means stop, right? So if we try that out, here I say, and it says bye-bye, and then it stops. And lastly, say that it, you can do else if. Let's say none of these are true. You can say, hey, I have no idea what you're saying. Sorry, I can't help you with that. So now if I run this, but how can I help you today? And then I just do this. It says, sorry, I can't help you with that. And then it starts again. So cool. That's been pretty much, you've created your first chatbot. You've gone through a lot of different things. One thing that I'll show you as well, if you're having issues here, is that this equals means it has to be an exact match. Here in the user message, you have capital somewhere. It's not going to work. And so what you can do to do that is here in the input message, there's a function called dot lower. And if I run this, it means that I can put some of these in all caps and it'll still work. So I can say something like, what is your name? And it'll still say Jeff, even though it's in all capitals. So that is pretty much it. Hopefully this tutorial was useful. Today you've learned about comments in Python. You've learned about variables, about variable types. You've also learned about inputs. You've learned about if and else statements and conditionals. You've learned about loops, for loops and while loops. You've learned about functions and imports, and you've created your first chatbot as a result. So hopefully that was useful. Please stay tuned for more videos. What I'd highly recommend is try to do this. Maybe if you haven't already physically gone to Google Colab and created this, please go and watch this video again and follow step by step on creating this. And if you can, try to extend it. As you've seen, there's great AI chatbots that will let you add more functionality. And you can say, okay, I now so respond even if there's an extra space, right? If there's an extra space in the user message, currently it won't respond because it won't be an exact match, right? So if I say like your name and I put more spaces, it says, sorry, I can't help you because there's more spaces and it doesn't know that exact match, right? And you can start to add more functionality. I'd highly recommend for you to go and try to add more functionality to this, and that's going to be the best way that you're going to learn. So thanks so much for watching. Please, I'm trying to make helpful videos for people. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe, but what I am going to ask you to do is I'd really make my day if you can add just a one-liner in the comment section of what kind of video you'd like to do next. I want to make sure that I'm making videos that are valuable, and please let me know if you have any suggestions. Thanks a lot.